Nobody talks about this, but we have virtually no purchasing power left in the currency. Officially, you got 3 cents left. And the biggest tool to regulate that are interest rates. And every time the Fed tries to raise interest rates, it creates the next crisis. So what are you waiting for? Central banks themselves are not waiting, right? And they have the ability to manipulate that. I'm saying you take advantage of it and get everything in place, because we are inside of a major hurricane. There's no doubt about it. It isn't just the death of the dollar. It's the death of the entire financial, monetary, and social system. And that's huge. The days of the dollar being the world reserve currency are fast coming to a close. And that move actually didn't start even, and it started back in 2002, because that was when the Federal Reserve first had to buy U.S. debt, which is an indication that the world was either saturated in it or they weren't able or wanting is probably a better word, to buy enough of the U.S. debt that we were trying to shove down everybody's throats. So yeah, there is absolutely zero doubt in my mind that the U.S. dollar is losing its position as the world reserve currency. But I don't really think that it will be a BRICS currency or China or any individual country or smaller group of countries that would take over that role. I continue to believe that it will be the SDR, the special drawing rights of the Federal Reserve, of the International Monetary Fund, because there are no limitations. That's a basket of currencies. So for a number of reasons. Number one, it's been around since 1969, and everybody has now quite a bit of it. Between 2009 and then, a couple of years ago, when the IMF went in and gave everybody like a ton of them, of SDRs. So plus they have the substitution fund, so that it'd be easy to convert any dollar-denominated assets into SDR-denominated assets, therefore establishing the SDR as the largest currency in the world with the most liquid pool of assets, because they're taking everything that's currently dollar-denominated and converting it into SDRs. So between being able to put every currency in the world into the SDR, so you have a global currency, and then translate that easily into a local currency, that's the one that just makes the most sense to me. What are you waiting for? Central banks themselves are not waiting, right? And they have the ability to manipulate that. I'm saying you take advantage of it and get everything in place, because we are inside of a major hurricane. There's no doubt about it. It isn't just the death of the dollar. It's the death of the entire financial, monetary, and social system. And that's huge. And they need as many people as possible to keep their wealth in there, because when we go to those CBDCs, you will have no choice if that is your only form of money. And they have said they can keep their finger on that button 24/7, which means they can also cut you off. I mean, it really is simple. You got to have this, and it's got to be outside of the system. It's real money. Central bankers know it. You need to know it too. People need to know it too. In 2020, they said, how much easier would it be if everybody had an account and we could push a button and just put money in there? So that's what they're setting up for, is to absolutely enable pushing the CBDCs onto the population. And they're going to try and keep it as close to normal as possible so that we can accept it and start to use it. And it's not using the money that, it's just what they'll do. It's not using the money that they're going to push into it, which will, again, here's the thing, Daniela, and nobody talks about this, but we have virtually no purchasing power left in the currency. Officially, you got 3 cents left. And the biggest tool to regulate that are interest rates. And every time the Fed tries to raise interest rates, it creates the next crisis. So why isn't anybody talking about, what happens when we do get to zero? I have not been able to find where in their documentation they're saying that CBDC will actually be convertible into gold. And until a currency is actually convertible, how do you know the gold is there? It's kind of like a crapshoot. So it's really interesting for me to see how this is going to be accepted there. And I'm certain, I am 100% certain, every single central bank is watching this. What the BRICS Bank is actually saying is that they don't have plans to back any currency, or certainly the BRICS currency, with gold at this point. That all they're talking about is enabling all of its members to use their own local currency to transact with each other. What's happening in Zimbabwe, because that's where the test of a gold-backed CBDC is taking place at the moment. But no, I don't think they can do it. Actually, that's like a misconception of a lot of people. Like, well, they can't back a currency with gold because there's not enough gold. Well, what really matters is the price of the gold in terms of that currency. And the whole point of gold being a stabilizing influence is because of its rarity and its broad-based use. So you don't actually really need a tremendous amount of gold in order to back a currency. It would just be how it was valued in terms of that currency. So we will see a gold backing again, because they're going to have to do it in order to get confidence of the population to use the currency, which is what makes what's going on in Zimbabwe so interesting. The issues that plagued the banks that failed are still prevalent throughout the entire global banking system. Because again, it's not rocket science, but when they raise interest rates, principal values go down, whether or not they admit it. So no, this banking crisis isn't even marginally over. I think it was Western Alliance that did manage to survive what happened in March, but their deposit costs, if I remember this correctly, increased, was it 25%? Because they're trying to attract deposits back into the system.